Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Dear White People, Volume 2, Chapter 8. That's what it's called. So
So close. You were going so well, and then you stopped to look for the next part.
Because my rhythm for these episode intros for every other show is season something, episode something, it's called blah blah blah.
I know,
this doesn't have that.
It was going so well though. You got 2 chances left.
I know, I got 2 chances left. I'm taking the points. It was a game episode, that's what I predicted.
Yeah.
It was a 50-50 shot, admittedly, but still, I'll take it. I'll take the win.
Yeah. To be fair, after the first 5 minutes, it's equally as much a Sam episode.
He was the one on the title screen. It was his face.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, which is clearly what indicates whose episode it is, regardless of the screen time afterwards. So, yeah. That is, and this episode all takes place in one night. In fact, it's almost real time. Not quite. There's a few things early on. Like, once the conversation gets going, it's real time. But, you know, like when there's a little joke about him trying to get into the room with the tripod, like, there's a cut there, there's a cut here. But,
yeah.
Once the conversation gets going. And actually, I got excited early on, because when Sam, like, finally came out of the room, because at first Gabe shows up, and he sets up his camera. I've got some technical issues. Not with the show, just with his filmmaking.
Is he not very good?
Well, now I get that he's a one-man crew, which is maybe the point of like his course, his degree, whatever he's doing, right? Or his post-grad degree, right? But, like, whenever... I mean, I've shot documentary stuff before, right? And college, right? That was a thing I did. And
sure.
You'd always spend time picking a good location so the background looked good. You'd always want to make the image... And he just throws his tripod down and sets up in the first place he sees. There's no... And on top of that, there's no lighting. Like...
No, it is funny, because obviously they moved to the radio studio. And
I was also thinking this before Sam said it as well, might I add.
Yeah, she's like, oh, no, it's designed for recording. I mean, why wouldn't you use it?
Yes.
And it's a fair point, but it's designed for audio recording. Yeah, you really should be lighting it better than this.
Yes. Lighting, I question. We never actually get to see what the footage looks like in this case, I don't think. Which, you know, I mean, obviously I expect bullshit in that, just because TV shows and movies will cheat and they'll make it all lit beautifully, even though technically it shouldn't. But, yeah, so, because even when he sat down, I was like, oh, it's just a little Rode mic on the camera itself. That's how he's recording the audio here. And I'm like, okay, alright. No tie clip, no boom mic. I mean, obviously, okay, you're a second person for a boom mic, admittedly. But
a good Rode mic will cover you for 2 people.
Sure. But there was so much that it felt so
cheap.
Sure, cheap, but it was always drilled into me whenever I was studying how to do documentary art, specifically interviews, right? Is that you would pick your good background, you'd get good audio, you'd light it, make the subject look good. There was so much emphasis, and it's almost like to his course, whatever it is, that no one cares what it looks like. It's just...
I wonder if his course, you know, I know it's a documentary course, but I wonder if it's less about
just the journalism,
filmmaking, more about the interview rather than the look of it. Whereas
when I learned about this, the journalism aspect was irrelevant.
It doesn't give a shit.
It was just get them to talk about something. Does the sound and audio work, and does it build a story? It doesn't matter if the story's about a guy who sells meatballs. You just need to cut it together and make it flow. That was the thing. But I don't know, it was bugging me. So out of the way. Again, it's not a critique of the show so much as it's just my personal peeves.
I get it.
But yeah, so... And I got kind of excited because Lionel walks in at first thinking, oh, it's a different night, and he's like, no, a little awkward moment. Then Sam walks in, you can feel the tension in the room as she walks down the stairs, and like, okay, she's here to be interviewed, but clearly this is kind of going to be a big deal. And I kind of got the inkling that, okay, is this going to be the whole episode? Is it just going to be their conversation? And I was excited by that prospect. I like when shows do this, and they give like one way to conversation the entire episode. So this was starting off as an interview. You know it's going to get personal. You know they're going to like erupt at some point and start talking about their relationship, their emotions. They're going to fight, and I think this is one of the best episodes of the show. Now, admittedly, what this was missing compared to most of the show is the jokes. There's very little humor in this episode because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
it's just very dramatic and emotional.
Heavy episode.
Yeah. Heavy for the characters and their drama, but also in the subjects at hand. Because I think not only was this a good emotional discussion that eventually got to be about them, and arguably it's always about them, even when it's pretending not to be, and that's kind of the point, is that both characters are using the race debate to kind of like argue about themselves, when really
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big dramatic point here. But it's also I think the first time there's been this type of argument about race, where it's Sam and like a white person, like, and obviously she argues with the pastiche guys, but that's very different because they're actively doing these things. But this was like, no, you're trying to show you're liberal, you're not racist, and you're trying to like, and she actually argues with them. It gets to a point as it's a shouting match of proving points, and her saying, no, this is why I feel this way, or this is why I am angry, or this is why I deserve to be angry. I don't have to need your permission, and so on. Like, there was a lot of, once it started flying back and forth, it really occurred to me, we've not really had a conversation like this. This will, just overt and in your face, but it felt natural because we built up to it. So,
I have to say there was a point in this where the acting kind of didn't stack up to the dialogue.
There
was a point for me where, especially once it got to the point where they were kind of shouting at each other, where it started to feel like two people doing a play rather than I was just watching the characters.
Okay.
I don't know. It just something about it just didn't click for me, and it's the first time in the show that I've really felt it.
Oh, fair enough. I can't say it stuck out to me. I never had a moment like that where I was like, oh, the acting's...
It's not that it was like bad acting. It was like, but like I say, it felt like I was watching a play. I was very aware that I was watching some acting, rather than rather than watching just the characters.
I never felt that. For me, I think because in part that it's such a natural build to this moment where because it was almost like this underlying thing the entire time they were dating.
Yeah,
where he's a white boyfriend and he's trying to be respectful and doing the right thing, and he's watching, he's trying to like put across this thing, and of course the phone call. I mean, that was the big thing, is that he starts talking about how, do you think your show in some way kind of escalated all this stuff with the alt-right group. In fact, the moment where he calls it controversial and she says, no, don't call it controversial, that implies there's like an argument to be made for the other side. It's funny that came up in this because it literally, there's been talk about, I've heard talk like that in the last week. About a certain TV actress that maybe got her show cancelled, relevant to this stuff. But so that was like a really sort of true to life moment, because I've literally just been hearing that being spoken about in the last week or so.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there's early on in this season there was a few points where I went, yeah, it really feels like they just took events from the last year and just put them in, whereas obviously that hadn't happened yet. I'm
just saying that's an example of that, because the whole idea of the media calling it controversial when they should really just be saying this was racist is kind of an ongoing thing. It has been for a long time. Yeah. But it's like after that point where they start accusing it, and she's like, "Oh, you're going to say I'm I'm at fault. You're the one who called the cops at the party and almost got Reggie shot, and I'm the one at fault." And it really starts. That's when it like breaks away from the room, and they start like going out, and she gets a drink to calm down, and it all starts bubbling over. But that was all, because it gets to the point where he actually does say some stuff that's, because up until a point she is saying a lot of things, she's analysing them, and she's saying things that may very well be true, and she might have some really good points to make here, but up until a point he is kind of like making sure he's not crossing a line. He's making sure that he is still inside the presentation she's claiming that he's making, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's to a point where it feels like she's the one in the wrong, almost. Like she's the one that's really pushing her personal feeling, whereas he's being professional. Yeah,
I mean, to sum up, she's been a bit more aggressive than she should be, given the scene and the context. Like, immediately, as soon as they sit down, she's got the comeback. She's really like hitting hard and trying to flip everything around on him.
There's the point where she goes to record it herself for her own show.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, why? And she's like, oh, just, for backup. And she's like, no, I won't edit. I'm not going to put you out of context. And she says, yeah, you won't right now. I'm like, that was undeserved.
Yeah. She's clearly not... And the funny thing is because we hear later on, like, maybe partly why she's in such a rough place right now, why she's in such a bad mood, is this email that someone's saying. Because he accuses her of also having white guilt. Because I thought the white guilt conversation was one of the most interesting parts of the whole episode. Is when she screams at him, "Oh, you do this, and you're going to find yourself a black girl, so you can feel like you're serving your white guilt in some way." He's like, "Of course I'm guilty. I feel guilt all the time. You don't think I feel guilty about that phone call? Like, I never even thought what that would have done to Reggie, like doing that. It never even occurred to me." And it's funny because she gets really mad that he's talked to basically all of her friends, and it's all this some big like tour to try and make himself feel better. And maybe there's truth to that. Like, that's the thing. Like, you can't outright say, no, there's not any truth to that he's doing that. But at the same time,
there's not. But at the same time, he says, no, they're my friends too, and I believe that, because especially someone like she accuses him of spending time with Joe, and it's like, no, they definitely have a friendship.
Yeah, it's Joel specifically. We've seen them have a friendship, but it's interesting because I think both of them, they keep hitting with points, and you can tell they're both fueled with more anger than they should be. Because I think he's holding back at first, and then eventually he kind of gets angry because it's escalating basically.
Yeah.
And they both start crossing lines where you can sort of feel them both. I think the first time where like she realizes she's maybe like, revealed something or opened up, or at least the first time that Gabe kind of gets a good point in back. Because I think at the start she is owning him. At the start of that interview, she is manipulating everything he says, and she is winning the verbal battle, if you will. And it shouldn't be a battle, is kind of the point. But eventually she makes this point where, you make all these big shows of doing this to try and prove you're not racist. Maybe the ways to do it are ways that don't scream, I want attention. And he hits back with, well, if there is any ways, you clearly have forgotten how.
Yeah.
And it's the first time where he kind of like just puts a mirror up and says, hey, that's kind of what you're doing all the time.
There's a point where, she says, oh yeah, you're just making a documentary. And he goes, you make a radio show. What's the difference?
Yeah.
And that's a fair point to make.
And I can't remember if it's before that or after that, if it turns into, oh, you're kind of taking my thing and using it for yourself.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, no, but I give it a shout out. Yeah, well, yeah, but you're kind of seeing it as, oh, this will be listened to more because it's coming from you.
Mm.
And again, it's like good points back and forth. It's kind of like, it's this sort of thing where there's no absolute correct ways to handle a lot of these things.
No. Is he wrong for trying to do this, or that's what she thinks he's wrong for even doing this at all, essentially. Whereas he thinks he's doing his best by at least trying.
Yeah, and I guess to the point where he starts to, I think later on in the episode he starts to question it. Like after the email comes up, we were sort of just getting to the email where someone sent to her parents. Basically, it was like a sorry for your loss, and she's been worried about her dad recently because he's had some health issues, and she clicked in the email, but it was to her parents and it was about her, and it was this racist comment about because she's being racist, implying that she's dead, and presumably Sam then had to like call her parents and be like, hey,
I'm fine.
Well, hey, I mean, I assume they maybe guessed that based on the content of the email once they opened it, but she presumably had to have a very difficult conversation, and like they're probably very worried about her if this is this kind of hassle she's getting while she's on campus.
Yeah, that's true.
So you see why she's sort of railed up, and that's when the tone comes back, because right before that they're shouting, and then that happens and it all comes back down, and it gets a little bit more kind of, okay, let's kind of be honest with each other a little bit more about what's happening, and then eventually she's like, oh no, I want to do the interview, I want to finish it, I want to go back in. And I think the other thing I predicted when I realised this was going to be all them like having this interview this episode is that they're probably going to be like together again by the end of it. Yeah, it's probably where it's going.
Get it all out in the open, and then that's it.
Yeah, and and I think the moment where it starts, and I think it's really expertly done, is they start recording again, and
only he starts recording though.
Only he starts recording, yeah. She doesn't keep it on. So it's a sign of trust again, right? So she's like, okay. And I like that, because I think since the start of the show, we've talked about Sam a lot and how she does do I say overdoes it?
She's overly aggressive in what she does.
Aggressive, but and that's a fair point. But I think I'd maybe pivot to overly dramatic, and she makes big dramatic points about it. At one point in this, she even jokes because when they start to make up, and he mentioned I shouldn't have broke up with you that night. Your thing was going on, all that. And she's like, yeah, it was dramatic though, and I can appreciate the impulse. Yeah. Like, she's kind of acknowledging her own fault there. She's acknowledging that she will do things to make the big shout and noise about it.
To make the point a little.
Yeah, but the moment that I really liked, where you could tell exactly where it was going, but it worked because you could see how it was going to keep doing this until it built up to it. Is they start talking again. She's answering the question, and then he just turns around and turns off the camera and says, "Oh hey, I don't even know her name. The girl you think I was trying to make you jealous with in class. I didn't even know her name. Like I knew it began with a J, but like it wasn't
until you said it. Then I couldn't have told you.
Yeah, I couldn't have told you. He stops the entire thing he's been doing the whole episode is to get this interview and get this honest sort of like answers out of her. And the minute she starts doing it, he interrupts it himself just so that she knows for sure that he's not interested in some other girl. And it's like, okay, right, I see where this is going. I see where this is going. Like, he keeps pausing it. But I was paying close attention to this when this camera was recording and not. Because eventually they stopped turning around to turn it off. They kept going, but they're getting closer, and the eventual kiss, and yeah, and you get the feeling that this conversation, it's fueled by the race debates on campus. It's fueled by Sam's abuse online, and that was the other thing. Because the reason why she brought up the email is because he just called it trolling. Oh, you're suffering some trolling, like it's no big deal.
Yeah, it's when she said, "Oh no, you're playing safe as a documentary. You're not on the front line," and he says, "No, neither are you. You do a radio show and you get some trolling."
Yeah, he belittles the trolling as if it's nothing, and I think there's a really good sort of lesson there. I think a lot of people, including the authorities, still don't take online crime seriously.
Yeah.
And we see that it does lead to things, and we see that there is.
It is a punishable offence in many places now, though.
It is now, but I mean, I think there's still an attitude from a lot of people. Oh, it's just online. It doesn't, it's not real. Yeah. Therefore, and that's why she tells them that. And but eventually they come in the kiss. But I was paying attention to that camera being on. And I got really worried because obviously Joelle comes in and she looks, and you can kind of again predict where it's going. That okay, this is her dad. Something's actually happened.
As soon as she walks in, okay, I know where this is.
Yeah, and Sam looks mortified, and they go off. And Gabe, true to his character again, to a fault, kind of like how Sam's to a fault, how she's always pushing and always very aggressive with her I don't want to say agenda. Agenda's a negative connotation these days, but with her.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah, yeah. Her beliefs and what she's pushing. Gabe, in the same way, immediately tries to anything I can do, Sam, to help, and he almost feels like okay, he's saying that because he thinks that's going to be helpful, but at the same time, you feel like he's saying that because he wants to feel like he can be helpful.
Yeah.
It's more for him to say it than it is for her to actually get the help.
Yeah.
But the camera was recording, and I got really worried because I'm like, Gabe, I know that was like a really raw emotional moment that you just caught on camera with Sam. And admittedly, the last minute, it's just him watching the "I've missed you" part over and over again. So I don't think it's going down this route.
No, but there's for a minute you're like, please don't use this.
Yeah, I was like, please don't use that footage, Gabe. Please don't. Like I got really worried for a second, and I'm like, I feel like you've learned a lesson here, and I hope you don't use that.
Yeah,
I really don't.
It would really undermine all of his. This entire episode if he does use that.
Yeah, it would, because I think the episode more than obviously it's about them kind of like I don't want to say getting back together, but them actually, because all season they've been avoiding each other. They've been avoiding actually talking about what's went down with them. They've just been kind of trying to not talk about it, and then finally they do talk about it. And you can almost take that as an analogy for the subjects that they're talking about as well. Racism. If you just don't talk about it at all, it all just bubbles up.
Worse.
Yeah, you have to actually have an open conversation about it. But at the same time, this conversation also shows, but it can also develop into a shouting match where both sides are just arguing with each other, and both sides are immediately going on the defensive about their points of view rather than just listening to each other. There's a lot of good points and correlations between the two.
I do this, to say, it's not until after all the shouting that the honest debate is even, approached. I mean, we didn't actually get there because obviously we got sidetracked, but that's the angle it was taking. Yeah,
and that's not to say that I think it's teaching us we have to have the argument first. It's just that what if we could just skip over that part?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's saying we should have the argument first, but I think it's just reflecting that we always do have the argument first.
Yeah, skip over it and go straight to the reasonable, rational conversation afterwards.
It's probably never going to happen though.
You never know.
I'm a cynic.
Yeah, depends who's in the room. Depends who's having the conversation.
I just mean on the whole, it's just
But you've taught me one thing, is to not have you in that room if I'm ever having a proper debate about something.
Hey, I can debate. I'm very good at debating.
I'm good at boats.
Look, the thing is, because I like arguing so much, I can debate as well.
No, you tell me you like arguing so much is exactly why I don't want you in the room.
Well, no, because I have the fun. And it's not the picking a side. Sometimes I get into an argument not just to because I care about the outcome, but just because I like having the argument. Which in this case, the debate.
Okay.
I like having that conversation rather than actually caring about whatever I'm fighting for at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think it's interesting that we see a montage at the start of all of Reggie's interviews with we see that's not Reggie, sorry, Gabe's interviews with one of them's Reggie, of course,
Reggie, yeah.
And one's with Troy, one's with Coco, one's with Kelsey, who has a interesting character now, more than I expected. And will Sorbet find her way back to Kelsey? That's the big mystery of the season. That's what we're really
that's the last moment of the last episode of the season.
Yeah, it's her finding Kelsey. I think what I liked about this is that I liked that it didn't use any music. Once the conversation got going, that was it.
Yeah.
Till the end of the episode, it was
Very
completely quiet. Yeah, it was all just room noise. It let the awkward moments speak. It let the emotional moments hit. And what I think was really impressive is I think as you're watching it, you feel the mood go up and down as to where it's going. It feels awkward at first, then it feels angry, so you're a little bit tense. And then when it starts to, like, the moment he turns off that camera, he just, oh, by the way, I don't care about that girl. Like, he needs to say that. He interrupts his own thing to tell her that. He needs her to know that. It's like, okay, right, now it's starting to get, like, literally as they're getting closer, you feel the warmth in the room kind of building up.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good handle of mood, this episode.
Yeah, definitely.
So, no, it was a good one. It's one of the best episodes of the show. As much as it's missing the humor aspect, it's also often why I love the show so much. I think the core drama between them and the rawness of it.
Like I said, I agree from a writing perspective, but some of the acting didn't quite land for me, so it kind of brings it down a notch.
That's fair. But for me, it pretty much did land.
That's fair.
All of it. I think if I was going to try and play devil's advocate to things that could be actually a problem, I mean, maybe the fact that we hear about her dad, and then by the end of the episode we actually have the moment of Jill coming and something's happened to her dad. It's not that big a deal, but it's like if you want to sort of go like, well, that's kind of a coincidence that she just mentioned that.
I think that's the problem of or the drawback, so to speak, of the structuring your season this way by focusing on all the different characters. Because we haven't had a Sam in such a long time that we haven't learnt this until now. Yeah.
But at the same time, the structure of the show allows it to do so many things otherwise.
It does, but like I said, it has to have some drawbacks somewhere, and this is one of them.
Yeah. Like I said, it didn't really bother me, but it's just if I put on my critical hat for a second and go, oh, well, that's a little bit, we just heard about that and then it happened at the end. But, it's such a minor thing.
I think as well, because obviously she was on Skype with him early in the season, right? And I don't recall any health problems being mentioned then.
Nah, not mentioned, no.
I feel like if there'd been something alluded to earlier on, it wouldn't have felt so out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But no, I think the episode was really good. So that is episode 8. So we've got two left in the season. And we'll get to those soon, so look forward to that. And I'm not sure, does Sam actually leave, or is the episode next week actually following Sam back home? Do we actually leave campus for the first time?
Don't think so.
Don't think so. Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like it would be strange for the show to leave campus.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But hey, I wonder how that because I assume she'll be back for the finale.
Yeah.
Because I'm still expecting a Sam episode. I mean, obviously this was very co-Sam, and it was nice to get so much Sam when since episode 1 she's been kind of like just in little scenes here or there. She's not been the focus since episode 1.
Yeah.
So it was nice to get a full dose of Sam again. But I'm still kind of expecting the finale to be Sam's episode now, and maybe. I'm wondering if going through this tragedy with her father will fuel her maybe a change in the way she handles things in the final episode.
Definitely. If not, that'll be whatever she goes through next season.
Yeah. So, no, interesting. So, full-on character episode, this one, in terms of the drama. So, let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailedfuzztv. You can do that over there. There's links in the description. There's a bunch of links over there for all the different audio feeds that we've got and various things. There's Connor's computer monitors.
Something just flashed up at me. AVG.
Oh, a lot of white lights. I just saw you blinded and then squint at the screen.
Yeah.
So that has been Dear White People episode 8. So thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys, and we'll see you next time.